Welcome to this video. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm just going to go into a little bit of a flow. Just waking up, a little bit tired. So my intention with this video is the highest levels of love, light, unity, and oneness. I had begun a video earlier and I had to start it over, and I just wanted to kind of clarify that one of the messages that had been coming through is how we are changing our communication with each other, recognizing that we're changing our verbs, our words, how we communicate, what it is that we're telling ourselves about our truth, what it is that we are telling another person about that truth, and how our communication with everything is changing as it should, because we cannot hold on to the same tone, if you will. For example, when we're a child and we want something, we might whine, right? And that has a tone. I want this, or I need this, or I deserve this. And I'm using this as an example. What I've been shown is that we are really being called to be in our inner child, yet recognize when that childlike behavior is not necessarily supporting our highest expansion. And essentially what I was shown is there's a lot of we're learning how to work with the energies and redirect how we exchange with one another. And this is the play on words energetically. How we exchange with each other in equal exchange, or is it unequal exchange? And is it equaling or in the same value as it might have held for us 5 years ago? And if it's not a valuable interaction and a valuable experience, it's not heart-held frequency, then why are we holding on to it in the same way? And so this has been a question that's been coming up a lot for me in my own experience, in my exchange with other people from my past, friends, family, whatever it might be. And in essence, that is, I've been shown the word that came through, what was it? It was, had to do with chronos. So synchronization. I might have synced up with someone from my past in a certain way at that time. And we had an amazing exchange of energy. And now that cycle is coming back up because that is lining up astrologically or energetically. And essentially I've been called to reorganize that, look at it, reanalyze, feel into that, and recognize that it doesn't necessarily sync up anymore. That doesn't necessarily mean we are not supposed to communicate. It just might mean that we communicate in a different way, and that can be, from what some of my friends are experiencing, a little bit more direct of a way. It might mean we communicate and say no thank you. It might mean we communicate and say, I'm a different person now, but I appreciate where I was when we synced up before in our understandings and realizations of how the universe worked. So we're all being called to essentially adapt, and I've talked about this before, and shift our awareness and focus in internal to external, and see how these old relationships and connections with our past selves, our past self, is essentially showing up for us again so that we can redirect our energies in a higher direction. And that might mean changing our focus. It might mean what I'm hearing is disbanding from that particular unionship and changing the direction of our own ship and what we decide to unify with. And it's difficult because we always think, sometimes it can be difficult because we always think of in the spiritual community as all of us being as one, and we want to be in union and oneness, of course. However, there are certain people that are on a particular path, and that may not be the same path that we choose to be on any longer. It might have been beautiful at one time, but that doesn't mean that it syncs up in this particular time frame in the same way or for the same reasons that it once did. So sometimes we're being really invited to recognize when it's time to move on and not hang on to these patterns, cycles, people, experiences, when it's time to let them go. However, sometimes they're called back into our reality for us to experience them as who we are now. And sometimes that can make the relationship more cultured. And I'm saying cultured as in like when you leave something to culture, like milk or cheese, like it takes on a different flavor. It maybe is a little bit older and more aged, and so it has more flavor to it. Other times we've changed our taste buds and we're like, that's not my flavor anymore. So it's okay. Everybody's in a different, plane is flying low. Oh, it's a helicopter. All right, so let's move into a little bit more inflow messages. So essentially, we're being invited to look at these things. Look up what our timing is. When we experienced this last time, who were we then? What were we feeling then? How were we communicating with ourselves and each other then? And this could be work. It can be, a relationship as in friendship. It could be a relationship as in perhaps a unification through marriage. It can be a lot of different family. So I feel like this has been coming up for a lot of us over and over again, for us to essentially create new patterns. And so that was the little energy update I wanted to share there. So let me just kind of go into. And again, this is meant to be felt, not necessarily understood on a linear basis. I'm just going to move some energy around. Shukoya tu maya kunitiya shuyak imetiya wahe shukine, a little light language. Ya wahe ti kime waye shu ya nati kia ya tu shu ne ne wa ya tiki shine wa ikuni tutu ye shiku yiniti ne wa ye shan ki ya hao. Shu ya yin kia ya wahe shu ya nati kina ya shu ya ki ma ya ha o sha yin ti ku ti shu ne aik wahene. One of the things I wanted to add to that was our experiences not being in a place of judgment for what it was. Perhaps we look back when we were in a relationship with someone and we see them now and we go, oh, how could I have ever been in a relationship with that person? But it's good to ask ourselves, how, why, who was I then? What do I see now? And what is it about myself that I'm judging about who I was then and who they were? And recognizing that we all go through certain experiences in our lifetime. And I'm going to use my example. I've been married for quite a few years now, and we've gone through stages in our marriage, right? As anybody else who's been in a relationship for an extended period of time recognizes. And I am not the same person that I was when I married my husband, when I made that commitment, when I made that vow. And there have been times in our relationship where we have really been asked to reassess that and find out what it is that has changed for us. And if you don't acknowledge that, or if we didn't acknowledge that, we would both be ignoring aspects of ourselves that we're wanting to shine through, or shadow aspects too that wanted to come out and show perhaps things that we had not developed, or things that we had not listened to, right? So this has been something that's been a continuous journey for my husband and myself. And because we've communicated, and it hasn't always been sunshine and rainbows, by the way, we're adapting and we're growing together. However, we are not necessarily still identical in how we interact with each other. That would be boring from my perspective. So part of this is about us really changing how we communicate with one another. And some of the ways I would have communicated with him, years ago are different, obviously, because they don't have the same impact. They don't have the same effect on one another. And the issues are not the same issues. Although sometimes they are the same issues that come up to be represented in a different variation so that we can experience them in a different way, at a different synchronization, at a different time in our lives, that then allows us to learn from that experience, in that energy, in that vibration, and move through that to come into a higher, what I'm hearing is higher variation in vibration. It gives us more colors, right? It gives us a bigger bandwidth to work with. Okay. And as we adapt to these newfound frequencies that are really sometimes just forgotten frequencies that we perhaps have forgotten how to play with, we begin to reorganize in such a way that we feel less, I'm hearing, shuffled around. And I'm seeing a shuffleboard, like we're playing on a different board game. We're not shuffling with the same chips. We're not just letting destiny rule our lives, saying these are the rules of this game, therefore we must play within this space. We're actually increasing the players. We're increasing how we play the game. And we then aren't allowing others to shuffle us around where they think we should be going. We become, I'm seeing us holding the staff, right? Holding the stick. We're the ones that are saying, no, this is where I'm going to move now, and this is how I'm going to move. We become more conscious and conscientious of this interaction as we play together, however that looks. And many of us are beginning to reunify with a higher trajectory. We are able to find our expression in a deeper stronghold, if you will, rather than a stranglehold. You guys remember that song? It's a stranglehold. Such a good song. Here I am now, baby. It's a long song. Anyways, I'm seeing people that felt like they were unable to express, like literally their throats were kept in this tight vice. And essentially that grip has loosened, and I'm being shown that it's our own grip on ourselves. Like when we come into this higher vibration, we feel the ability to express ourselves in a myriad of ways. It doesn't just have to be through language. It doesn't just have to be through English. It doesn't just have to be through It can be expressed through dance, and can be expressed through artwork, and we begin to want to find that expression. How can I express what I'm feeling right now? Because this feels so different than what I'm used to experiencing or expressing. And so I'm being shown that this is a gift right now for us to play with. And as we begin to unify and remember these higher expressions, we begin to dance in our own expression. We begin to be that creative force that we were meant to be. We begin to find the higher meaning in all things, and we begin to interact with this higher meaning and higher representation of who we are and who we are, who we always have been from one perspective. And we begin to merge with these higher directives, and we begin to merge with these higher objectives. We begin to merge with these variations of our own self-reflectives, our own self-reflection. We become a bigger reflectivation. This is a play on words, like activation, realization, reflecting back to us more of that realization. And we become less bound up by the old binding, the old principles. I was seeing an old book that was held in an old binding, and that we opened up that book and it just didn't, it started to fall apart. But we're holding that foundation, and we're just making adjustments to it and growing from it. And so many of us are feeling this priceless interaction with these higher thoughts. Many of us are hearing more as we interact with each other and we begin to unbind our old thinking. So we get out of the old methods and methodology, if you will, of higher thinking and what that needs to look like. And we begin to play with all the elements that are involved with higher thinking. For in higher thinking, when we open, we absorb more. We become more. And in this absorption, I'm seeing the cells opening up to the sun and the light particles coming in, and then we absorb that, which leads us to thinking about things that are maybe outside of the old scope of how or what we used to interact with or what we used to think of. And I'm also seeing that is in reference to when we channel that through our heart. And I'm being shown really also that this is the technology. Yes, there is technology that we can utilize to access these higher realms, but I'm really being called to remind us that our body is the technology. We do not need artificial technology to get to this space. It's already happening inside of us to click into place. It's already exchanging with us, for we are constantly exchanging information with our environment. And as we allow ourselves to exchange this information with our environment at this time, during this time, during this time, in the rings of time, like in the rings of the tree, we begin to access our higher reflectology, play on words again, in a more real time, right? We access this reverberation. We feel into this vibration. And it gives us a higher accessibility, and I'm hearing accountability, so we can count higher. We go higher. Our octaves are higher. Our frequency becomes higher. And I'm hearing you're hired. We begin to connect with our higher self. And in doing this, we then merge with that aspect. And we're pulling in all of these pieces of disharmony, and we're dissolving, absorbing, integrating, dissolving, absorbing, integrating. And the elemental kingdom is elemental in this, dear Watson. I've written about this before. So as you connect and tune into the elemental kingdom that is within you, that is your own skin suit, that is your own technological presentation of the elements, if you will, you begin to collaborate in this playground, in this chemical playground that is within. And in this exchange with your body, with our own cosmos, I'm hearing cosmonaut, we begin to allow ourselves to move out of the robot, out of the robotic presentation of this interaction with technology, and we begin to hypothesize a higher currency. We begin to reactivate our entire net worth, value, currency, golden frequency of inbound rings of harmony and truth as we harmonize and realize with this higher space, this higher realm that is held within us. Yet we are being encouraged to interact with true Mother Nature. For as we study nature, we begin to see the recipe. We begin to see all of the ingredients that come together to establish our own nature. And our own patterns then begin to reconstruct. So I'm being shown Emisaro Emoto and the water experiment. So I really invite you guys and encourage you to look that up, because as he interacts and changes the words that he's using, which was the original message that I'll have to type up because my phone fell over. Essentially, we're being invited to change our verbiage. What are we telling ourselves how our truth is? This is how the truth is. Is it though? Let's reinstate that in a different way. Let's restate that in this state. So I'm in this higher vibration. Let me look at that now and see how that interacts, how that's unfolding for me. And I'm being shown this then changes our interaction with nature. So we then begin to see more. So in the Bible, it talks about having eyes to see and recognizing certain things and seeing things for what they are. But we used to only be able to see things for what they were, according to what we were able to see. And so now we're being called to see things for how they are now, in this chronological, this call in chronos, in time, for us to feed back in the system more to the system. So the more we interact with nature, the more it creates this feedback loop. And we get more feedback from our environment, including our physical body and our frame, how we view things. So I see reality very differently than maybe somebody else who doesn't interact in this way. They may be completely logical and entrained in a particular part of the brain. But by us opening and exchanging with our environment, getting out barefoot, blessing the water before we drink it. And yes, we can use technology to increase the vibration in our food and our water, but we're not being called to rely solely on that, because that is a way of thinking that we have to do things that way. And I'm hearing the catastrophe type thing. Well, in order to do this, this is going to happen. If we believe that, that is where we focus our attention. That's where we create our reality from. That's what is then shown back to us, mirror, mirror on the wall, right? So it becomes this reflection, and again, back to reflectology. So what is reflecting back to us, right? Ology, words, sounds, soundology, okay. And in doing this, we create a more cohesive unification with the elements that are essentially communicating in all the realms. And we begin to feel into these higher realms of significance. For we are having a significant impact in the impact zone. We are having a significant impact in our own home and our home base frequencies. As we impact that which is our home, we then ripple out and interact with other homes, other land signatures, I'm hearing sonar. So it's like we're pinging to other planets, and we are signifying to others that we are ready for an endorsement, if you will. That's a play on words. We are ready to be endorsified. We are ready to be backed. We are ready to, I'm hearing sign our name to, sign up. Lots of plays on words. Up level. We're ready to have this interaction, whether it be with our galactic brothers and sisters, or whether it be with our higher versions of us, whatever we want to label it as. So I'm going to kind of end on that note and just kind of play with this, invite you guys to play with this. So what I'm being shown is it's really powerful time, chronology, to communicate with our environment right now. Sit outside with the plants. Look at how snow looks under a microscope. And when you go outside and you see the snow, visualize the snowflakes. And this is going to sound, I'm speaking light language, so how crazy can it sound for those who aren't familiar with it? But communicate with your environment. Water is inside of us, those water crystals. We change the vibration of the water inside of our body, but by what we tell ourselves. So we're also being called to have that relationship with the crystals and look at the different shapes of the snowflakes and recognize that all the patterns that are around us are meant for us to view, for us to, I'm just seeing I'm hearing it's a medium, it's a portrait, it's a landscape. So touch the plants and send them love. Give a tree a hug. I do it all the time. Go volunteer at an animal shelter and connect with those animals that need love. Just the things that we all know, but we forget about sometimes. And as we really connect with that environment, it sounds louder to us. It sings back to us. So I know this is a little woo-woo, but it's all science, right? It's all vibration, it's all sound, it's all frequency. So as we bring that through, we feel more capacity, a bigger capacity for love. We feel like we can open more to the significance, that's a play on words, of the dance of life. And we become more joyful in our expression as we recognize that the vibration has increased. So play in that space sometimes. So in love and light, guys, namaste. To be continued.